This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can visit their store by using my referral link in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm Neetsahone, and today is Friday, and that means it's time for the 529th MTG Top 10. If I sound a little weird, it's because I'm recovering from a cold. Weird thing is, I sound worse now than I did when I was really sick. It's weird how those things work out. Anyway, in this series, I rank cards based on their historical performance at Magic's highest level of competition. Among the 528 previous MTG Top 10s, there are dozens that look at creature types, but there's still many creature types I haven't looked at, including one of the game's most popular creature types, Slivers, which I'm finally going to take a look at today. Slivers originally made their debut in Tempest, and they are pretty much the most tribal creature type of all time. In other words, almost every sliver grants some type of bonus to itself and all other slivers, or in the case of more recent slivers, only to slivers you control. This means that if you get several in play, they're all buffing each other in one way or another. This has made them popular because jamming a bunch of slivers together in a deck is an easy thing to do, and you end up with something very synergistic and powerful. Over the years, sliver decks have intermittently been viable in the competitive formats. In this video, we'll be doing a deep dive on individual cards that have been successful in these decks, so if you want a deep dive on the broader history of sliver decks, I've actually done a whole deck history on that topic. So you'll want to check that out. To be eligible for this list, a card had to have the Sliver creature type or be capable of making Sliver creature tokens. In all, there were 112 cards eligible for this list, and in this video, we'll look at the 10 Slivers that have left the biggest impact on competitive Magic. Before we get started, here's a quick reminder on how I score cards in these videos. A first tier top 8 is worth 2 points. This includes events like World Championships and Pro Tours. A second tier top 8 is worth 1 point, and this includes events like Grand Prix and Regional Championships. Alright, let's take a look at the top 10 Slivers. At number 10, it is Cloud Shredder Sliver. It's from Modern Horizons, which is the most recent set to include Slivers. It grants both flying and haste to all of your slivers, including itself, of course. So at worst, it's a 2-mana 1/1 with haste and flying, and if you're playing the Cloud Shredder, you obviously have a ton of other slivers who will benefit from the boost. Because it's from Modern Horizons, it has never been legal in sets like Standard or Pioneer, but it has been getting it done in formats it is legal in, like Modern and Legacy, where it, of course, sees play in sliver decks. It hasn't gained any points in 2021 so far though, so we'll see whether it gains more points in the future. At number 9, it is Plated Sliver. It comes from Legions, a set that included several slivers. Onslaught Block was all about creature types and tribal payoffs, so it makes sense that slivers found their way into the set. Anyway, Plated Sliver gives all slivers +0/+1, which means on its own, it's a 1-mana 1/2. That toughness boost is definitely a smaller upgrade than most upgrades offered by slivers, but this is attached to a 1-drop, and that's pretty impressive. Plated Sliver has gained all of its points in Pauper's sliver decks. Pauper is a format where only commons are legal, and there are enough powerful common slivers out there that they're pretty legit in the format. While Plated Sliver has the same number of total points as Cloud Shredder Sliver, it has a higher average finish, so I gave it the edge. It also looks more likely it's going to gain points in the future. At number 8, it is Hunter Sliver. This sliver grants Provoke to all of your slivers. Provoke's a pretty cool mechanic from Legions that only appears on a handful of cards in all of Magic. It effectively allows you to directly attack opposing creatures, even allowing you to untap an opposing creature so you can force it to block. This can turn your attacks into removal spells, which is pretty spicy when you have a board full of Provoke creatures. Like Plated Sliver, Hunter Sliver has gained all of its points in Pauper sliver decks. At number 7, it is Gemhide Sliver. This sliver turns all of your slivers into mana dorks that can tap for mana of any color. That can allow for serious ramp and allow you to play slivers across all colors fairly easily. It gained its first points in Time Spiral Block Constructed in a sliver combo deck built around Wild Pair. This powerful enchantment could allow you to tutor up slivers and put them directly into play, allowing you to amass slivers with a combination of abilities that would allow you to win the game. Once you had Dormant Sliver, Reflex Sliver, Gemhide Sliver, and Frenetic Sliver in play, all of your slivers would produce mana right away and draw you cards when they enter the battlefield, letting you play more slivers, which in turn drew you more cards. and those cards were usually slivers too. Once you had enough, you could use Frenetic Sliver to get rid of dormant slivers so you could attack with your army and win the game. Gemhide Sliver has also managed a single point in Modern, and it sees play in Pauper Sliver decks too, where it's likely to continue to gain points. At number 6, it is Bladeback Sliver, which allows your slivers to tap to ping a player or planeswalker. You can only use that ability if you're hellbent though, which means you have to have an empty hand. Sliver decks tend to be pretty aggressive, so that isn't a huge ask. In fact, one of the worst things for an aggro deck is when they run out of cards and the opponent has stabilized. Bladeback Sliver makes that a lot harder for your opponent. This is another sliver that's been heavily featured in Pauper decks. At number 5, it is Crystalline Sliver, which grants Shroud to all slivers. Shroud is basically a worse version of Hexproof. It not only makes it so your creature can't be targeted by your opponent, it also makes it so that you can't target your own creatures. Shroud is the older mechanic, and over time they replaced it with Hexproof, because Hexproof doesn't have a downside. Anyway, in a sliver deck, you're not going to be targeting your own stuff most of the time anyway, since you don't need auras or combat tricks to make them a threat. You just need more slivers, so this is mostly upside that does a great job of protecting your board. It was featured in the very first competitive sliver deck, which made its debut in Extended back in 1999. It's also been played in Legacy Sliver decks, though it doesn't have any points in any format since 2020. At number 4, it is Sidewinder Sliver, which grants flanking to all of your slivers. This makes your slivers harder to block because anytime a creature without flanking blocks a creature with flanking, it gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Sort of like what we saw with Plated Sliver, this upgrade isn't the most impressive thing ever, but it's attached to a 1-mana card and it definitely delivers more than 1 mana of value on a board with a bunch of slivers on it. It's gained all of its points over the last several years and has been played in Pauper, Legacy, and Modern. It's likely to keep gaining points going forward. At number 3, I have included 2 slivers, Gale Rider and Winged Sliver. I included these two together because they both grant flying to slivers, and they would have both made the list, with Gale Rider Sliver the legitimate number 3, and Winged Sliver would have been at number 6. By including them together, we get to look at more unique sliver cards. Gale Rider Sliver is certainly the better of the two, as it costs half the mana and doesn't grant flying to opposing slivers. However, for a long time, Winged Sliver was the only way you could give your slivers flying, so it was played in Extended and Legacy between 1999 and 2008. Winged Sliver also happens to be common, making it legal in Pauper where Gale Rider isn't, and Winged Sliver has gained more points in that format as a result. Meanwhile, in the years since it was printed, Gale Rider Sliver is the flying sliver of choice for both Modern and Legacy sliver decks. At number 2, I've included 3 cards, Muscle, Sinew, and Predatory Sliver. Like with the flying slivers, these slivers all do the same thing, offering slivers a standard Lord boost of +1/+1. Muscle Sliver is the original, and also the one with the most points. Sinew Sliver is a white version of Muscle Sliver with the second most points, and Predatory Sliver is identical to Muscle Sliver, apart from the fact that it only gives the bonus to your slivers. These 3 are part of what makes sliver decks so good in Pauper, as there really isn't another tribal deck in the format with access to 3 super efficient lords. Getting multiple copies of these in play is incredibly powerful. In addition to their success in that format, all 3 have also been played in Legacy, while Muscle Sliver also gained points in Extended, and Sinew Sliver and Predatory Sliver are continuing to gain points in Modern. These 3 sliver lords are likely to continue to gain points going forward. However, they will probably never catch the number 1 card on the list, which is Harmonic Sliver, which allows your slivers to destroy an artifact or enchantment when they enter the battlefield. With its 44 points, Harmonic Sliver has really outpaced all the other slivers in the game. This is because it's the only sliver so far that has consistently been played outside of sliver decks. It has of course also been played in sliver decks across a variety of formats, but this sliver was also an important card in toolbox decks in both Modern and Legacy, decks that didn't really care about slivers other than this one. Toolbox decks are decks that run singleton copies of cards that are powerful in specific situations, so they can tutor them up at will. In Modern it was played alongside Birthing Pod, and in Legacy it was played in Survival of the Fittest decks. Eventually both of those cards got banned, and while toolbox decks still existed in different forms, especially in Modern. Harmonic Sliver eventually got outstripped by other cards that could do the same thing when they entered the battlefield, like Reclamation Sage, which was easier to cast and had better stats. So Harmonic Sliver stopped being played in any deck without Slivers in it, but it continues to work great in Sliver decks where it is still gaining points today. It's unlikely to ever get surpassed by other Slivers, as it would take another one crossing over outside of Sliver decks to unseat it. It could happen, but it seems like a long shot. So, those are the top 10 Slivers. If you want to build a Sliver deck of your own, check out the description, where you can find a direct Card Kingdom link for each card in this video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch future videos, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. If you want to take a look at past MTG top 10s, including dozens more that look at specific creature types, you should see some playlists on your screen shortly. Lastly, if you'd like to go the extra mile in supporting me and the channel, you can do that by buying Neatsahone merch, by becoming a channel member, or by becoming a patron. You can find ways to do all of those things in the description. Thanks for watching.